But when we came around to 2020 and I got nominated to be the presidential candidate for the Green Party, we decided to emphasize that this was an eco-socialist Green New Deal because progressive Democrats had co-opted the slogan and watered down the program pretty radically. And, we had always emphasized that the public sector was going to have to be the central driver to the solutions to these twin crises of climate and economic insecurity. And, we like to point to the precedents of World War II. To address that emergency, the federal government took control of a quarter of the manufacturing capacity of the United States in order to turn industry on a dime into what FDR called the arsenal of democracy, to arm the allies to defeat the fascists. And we're arguing that we need to do nothing less through the public sector to defeat climate change and poverty. So the progressive Democrats in 2018, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez won an upset primary victory. She did use the Green New Deal. We happen to know she got it from a candidate who had run as a Green for city council in New York. And his campaign manager was AOC's campaign manager. So that's where the slogan came from. And that's fine. And then AOC went to the Sunrise Movement sit-in at Nancy Pelosi's office right after the election. And they were demanding a special Green New Deal committee that could put proposals to the floor of the House and really move this thing. And Pelosi, of course, said no. She rejected that. It would have to go through regular order, which meant the Energy and Commerce Committee in particular, which is controlled by fossil-fueled Democrats. That's where they get a lot of their campaign contributions. And that's why we have such a terrible energy policy with respect to climate change coming from the Democrats. So what AOC and Senator Ed Markey decided to do was put a non-binding resolution into the Congress and try to get them to, give a sense of the Congress that that's where they wanted to go. The problem was they radically diluted what the Green Party had been talking about. They eliminated the ban on fracking and new fossil fuel infrastructure. They eliminated the phase out of nuclear power. They eliminated the deep cuts in military spending to help pay for a Green New Deal. And they extended the deadline for zero emissions 20 years, 2 decades, from 2030 to 2050, which is beyond what the climate science says we need to do. And then they defined it as not zero emissions, but net zero emissions, which is what the fossil fuel industry loves, because the idea there is you keep burning fossil fuels, but phony solutions like carbon offsets and carbon capture and storage means you'll get quote unquote net zero. And then I think just as significantly, the progressive Democrats basically changed it from a eco-socialist program emphasizing the public sector into a Keynesian stimulus with corporate welfare for corporations, incentives, tax breaks, loan guarantees, subsidies, to try to coax the corporations to make this energy transition. And also they assume that the economic stimulus of these public subsidies would trickle down to the working people and disadvantaged communities. And we know from history, we've had a lot of history of that in our country, that that's not what happens. So they're putting their hopes on the independent, separate decisions of hundreds of corporations in response to these incentives to coordinate a transition to clean energy. And they assume, just like supply side trickle down economics, from the Reaganites, assumes that the benefits are going to trickle down to the working people in the disadvantaged communities. And we're arguing that, we need to get back, and we did some of this during the old New Deal, where government, through public enterprises, directly employed people providing goods and services that are essential, like clean energy or healthcare. And by doing it through the public sector, you can also make sure that the public expenditures directly benefit working people. But instead, as the Green New Deal has really been dropped from the vocabulary by most of the Democrats, and they got behind Joe Biden's Build Back Better program, And when I say progressive Democrats, I'm talking about those in office, but also those out of office in the NGOs that give a lot of support to these Democrats.